We live in a very purposeless society. The absence of purpose alone is the chiefest cause of all of man's problems. This is why terrorist groups exist. This is why conforming to all kinds of negative peer groups has become a norm. That a man, as an act of his will, gets up early in the morning, decides to be a candidate of a terrorist group. And it's very interesting when you look at it from that wise. Let's define purpose. Why bother about this thing called purpose? What's the definition? I define purpose as a God-given assignment, what you were sent on earth to do, an activity in which you derive your feeling of importance, an activity you get out of bed to, an activity you enjoy doing because it contributes to society and nation building. So where's the parallel between being a terrorist and purpose? When you're in a terror group, you share the same goals as your comrades. You have the same objective. When you're out there causing mayhem, you feel the dopamine. You're getting up to do something. In other words, you're routing the same feeling derived from purpose, only from a negative outlet. For the same reason, many of you engage in hedonism and all kinds of distractions. As a man, when you get out of bed, scroll through social media, you pick up a bitch and solicit for intimacy. It's the process of getting up every single morning and making progress on that wife. You call her, have you eaten? You check up on her, you go on a date. So it's the progressive realization of that outcome that is interesting. Once you get the outcome, you bounce. You have no idea why she's no longer interesting. You're on to the next date. It's not necessarily limited to your primal instinct, but this desire for progress, this desire to be part of something bigger, this desire for conquest is ingrained deep in your biology. Again, you're realizing the feeling of purpose from a negative outlet, which is only lead to running. We also see this with sport. People today have the history of all of the Premier League clubs, the year of their inception, the various players, the birth of the players, where the players came from, the history of the clubs players participated in, and they're giving you all this history. That's the outlet of which they derive their feeling of importance. Every single thing you do today, whether it's scrolling social media, creating content, starting a business, soliciting for intimacy all your life, all boils down to this one concept: purpose. You're routing that feeling from any outlet at all. My friend, life is cause and effect. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. As you sow, you shall reap. The problem with today's modern age of insanity is we try to solve problems by locking horns, which is a logical solution. And logical solutions don't work. They've already been tried. That's what anyone will try and do. Solve problems with psychological solutions. So instead of making the pain faster, make the experience more enjoyable. One costs you billions of dollars, the other pennies, relatively. So every single outcome you desire is an effect, and there's a prerequisite action to bring about that effect. Tackling that problem head on is a societal approach of solving problems. And where has that led you? Right back to me. Logical solutions don't work. We've established that point. Instead, look for the causes for the outcome you desire. For instance, take confidence. Confidence is a byproduct of submitting yourself to enormous amount of difficulty, being shaped by the fullness of affliction. That's how you get confidence. Hammered by life, battered by life, you derive confidence from an activity. Do you think an entrepreneur who's 5'4" gives a shit about his height? He's too busy trying to convince those investors to give him money, else his family is going to perish. And every single person within his radius would suffer. He has one chance to retire his entire bloodline, and you think he has the time to consider whether investors would hand him money due to his height impediment. He doesn't give a shit. Even though I guarantee that would be an insecurity at the initial stages of his journey, he will come to a point where he looks in the mirror. I refuse to be identified by this insecurity. There are better things to do. This is my height. Let's move on. Simple. Done. Whereas, if you are to take the societal approach, you'll be on YouTube all day, looking for tips, hacks, posture straight, chin up high. The problem with all of that is you're placing your confidence on externality. Confidence on externality is a one-way route to failure. What happens when that externality is no longer there? For instance, your confidence is placed on a car. The car breaks down. What's your response? Your confidence is placed on this external activity. Speak in an affirmative tone. Raise your voice, chin up high. The day you speak in anything other than that, it cancels out every single investment you've made. Your confidence has to be internally derived. One way to spot individuals portraying confidence is the way they defend themselves. When you hit a nerve or an insecurity, they try as much as possible to justify why they did that, justify why they came in a Toyota as opposed to a Mercedes. That's the classic way to identify people who are not confident or who are portraying confidence. Being confident and portraying confidence are two different things. There's also the difference between courage, boldness, and confidence. So they are different stratas of making a bold move, of portraying yourself to be a leader. But confidence is an elixir and a concoction of leadership. But that's not the discourse of today. We're talking about purpose and purposeless society. Most of you derive feeling of importance from hedonism, either talking to women, going to the club, partying, increasing your social media count. Every single thing you do, subscribe to the lens or this principle I just shared, which is a feeling of importance, a sense of contribution. How do you identify your purpose as well as accept? There are two different concepts. You first identify your purpose, then you accept it's your purpose. And notice how I didn't use the conventional word, which is find your purpose. You do not find your purpose, you identify as well as accept. Your purpose is glaring in front of you. You are yet to identify as well as accept. You have this flawed belief. Your purpose has to be difficult, like something external, something you go out like a quest to discover, which is not the case. You've heard this concept incidentally. Find what looks like play to you but feels like work to others. The chances of you agreeing with that internally are in single digits. Yes, you concur on a cerebral level. Yes, I agree with you. But when it comes time to live out that assignment, you refuse because this activity is so easy that you don't consider it to be hard work. Subscribe to that first principle, but to your detriment, we as humans have this idea of progress. And when you're doing an activity that is easy, it doesn't satisfy that psychological need. And any activity that is done easy, anything gotten easy, is generally unappreciated. You see this in your life, you will trade your limbs, which is irreplaceable, for finances, which is, when was the last time you were grateful for having legs? Exactly. But you complain incessantly for luxury. You see the paradox. Now write that down because it's going on my Ifeanyi's Hall of Fame. The paradox, I'll repeat it again. Find what feels like play to you, but work to others. In finding this activity, the chances of you accepting it is minimal because it feels like work and we need something that reinforces our psychological need of working hard. Also, you have this flawed belief that there is no financial correlation to that activity because it's become so habitual and familiarity breeds content. The first one who saw a camel fled, the second dared within distance, the third dared slip a house around the fence. So that thing which might seem bizarre becomes quite commonplace when your eyes have been given time to acclimatize. Identify your purpose as well as accept your purpose. While I was speaking, there's an activity that popped up in your head. Write that down. Circle it. That's your purpose. Another fear is this idea that if I double down on this, if I give it my all, what are the chances of success? Here is the guarantee. Again, the familiarity, the idea that it's become habitual, blinds you to the enormous possibility of that talent. Take for instance, a lady who makes hair. Chances are excellent she's going to downplay that skill. Everybody is making hair. There's nothing special about this. Don't worry how to make their hair. Why aren't you the one behind them? I'll share this story of a barber. Because of this scar on my head, any saloon I walk into, I leave there like a funeral. The barbers would always shift my hairline 41 to 2 inches back. This would piss me off. I kept going from saloon to saloon. Eventually, this discouraged my normal hair routine from 2 weeks to a month of cutting hair. And as the days drew nearer, the more anxious I became. Because of the community I was at the time, there was no light, so I had to walk miles to charge my devices. I had to walk miles. I refused to stay idle and wait till a miracle fucking happened before I began studying about the internet and learning about various subjects that I found interesting. But that's a different discourse. Story for another day. I walk into this small kiosk, see a guy, probably 19, charge my device. I'm looking around. I kept going there to plug my device because I had a roster. So when it got to its turn, I would surface. We as humans are moral beings, and when the relationship is one-sided, you begin to feel guilty. Once one party has contributed more, you feel guilty. You feel this need to reciprocate. I said to the guy, one day I'll come cut hair at your store. Casually, I have no intention, zero, of coming there. As the day rolled by to cut my hair, about to go to the next saloon and leave there like a funeral as usual, I decided to give this guy a try. The 19-year-old got down, two children before me, bounced them when I was their age. My elders had to cut their hair first. Sat down on the chair with my heart pounding, and 20 minutes later, I looked myself in the mirror. I was blown away. He did the hairline perfectly. He did it so good that even when I left that community, I would book his ride, request for home service. And when I left that state, I would fly into the current state to cut my hair. And once upon a time, when we became established, cutting my hair in a different state. My friend, are you ready to know? Yes, of course. I sold him the idea, paid for his accommodation as well as salary in an upscale flat in an upscale place in Lagos, Nigeria. Everything taken care of. I sponsored every single thing, everything. Now, I do not give this analogy for self-aggrandizement or to augment my status. We are past that. He's so proficient at what he does. As a matter of fact, you can see my hair is bushy. I'll be leaving this state very soon. That's one of the reasons why he's not here. So when I go to the other state, I get to meet him. He cuts my hair. For now, he's the only person who cuts my hair. This is an example to show you there are enormous possibilities within whatever service you render. This would not be possible if he was not proficient at what he does. Most of you are plagued with two problems. The first, you're not proficient at what you do. The second, you're waiting for a rich man before you offer your best service. The first one, you're not proficient. This talks about laziness, lukewarmness towards your job. You come to the store, you go by 12, close by 2 p.m., all in the name of service, and you encourage a very lazy lifestyle, nonchalant lifestyle towards your work. Whereas your neighbor runs a 24-hour store. On Sunday, he has employed Muslims. In the night, he employed night watchmen to avoid his store from being robbed. And you wonder why he has all the customers. You gossip about him. He took all my customers. He stole every single person for him. He's probably using some voodoo, some magic. And you go to God, casting and binding. Whereas the real problem, there are people today, is the customers that have to go to their apartment and wake them up. Knock, knock, I need to get XYZ. It's too early. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. It's too early. Are you joking? And you want to prosper. And you wonder why you are poor. And you wonder why that shop, why that store never increases. Problem is you. The second, waiting for someone to show up or a rich man before you give your best service. The problem with that is, like that barber, you never know who you're cutting. You never know who's cooking. You never know what process someone is submitting himself to. Had that guy made that mistake, he wouldn't have gotten this opportunity. He never would. And it's most likely if you are used to substandard service, once an opportunity presents itself to provide standard service, you perform below average because you're used to producing low quality. You see tailors or fashion designers as they address themselves. The measurements are inaccurate, you delivered late, and you put it in some torn polythene bag. Here you go, test it. How does it look? It's clear that the accurate is or the measurement is inaccurate. Here is longer than here. This place is longer than this place. What do you expect me to say? Also, and he never commissioned you to do anything. The next you hear of that individual is holding some governmental position and you wonder why he never reaches out. I used to sew for this man. I used to do XYZ. It doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it. So my friend, be proficient at what you do. One way you identify your purpose is to identify as well as accept your purpose. Another question you ask yourself, if I give it my all, if I give it my best, what is the guarantee that this will work? I can't see the literal correlation between my barbing salon to having an upscale salon in one of the most luxurious states in Nigeria. How will this happen? As you do not know how bones are formed in the womb of her as a child, so you do not know the ways of the Lord. Commit yourself to the process. Keep preparing and you'll be fine. As always, my friend, pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.